Welcome to the City Debate Show. Joining me around the table today, the Manchester City reporter at BBC Radio Manchester, old pal of mine, Ian Cheeseman, and I'm delighted to say back round the table, the secretary of the official supporters club, Kevin Parker. Right, we'll talk about players in a minute, Ian, but let's talk about games. Bite-sized chunks. A win at home to Newcastle. Your thoughts?
Very impressed by the Wigan game, which was the one before it, and the Newcastle game, because they showed a different side of City than we've seen of late. There was a bit more determination, a bit more fight in the bellies, I think, of the players, and they looked a little bit more like a team. And they continued that against Newcastle from that Wigan game.
Do you think it would have made a difference, though, if Newcastle had turned up?
Yeah, well, there is that, yeah. They're not a great side at the moment, Newcastle, are they? And I must admit, I don't normally have a bet, but I did have a bet on City.
I know, I heard you mention it. I thought, Ian, betting?
Yeah, and I put a tenner on. Me, a tenner! And City won, obviously, and I thought they would do. Even then, they made it a little bit more difficult than they should have done near the end by conceding that goal that Wayne Bridge will have nightmares about, I suppose. But in the end, I think it was a pretty comfortable victory against an average team. That
said, Kevin, we're talking to Fred Eyre on Saturday, and he bumped into the great Mike Doyle, and Mike Doyle described that Newcastle side as the worst Newcastle side he'd ever seen.
Yeah, I thought in the first half they were very, very poor, and we were probably unlucky not to have scored at least 2 or 3 rather than the one at half-time. And in the second half, I don't know what happened, whether we took our foot off the pedal a bit. They came more into the game, and actually, probably before we got our second, they were lucky not to get an equaliser. Perhaps they could have had a penalty, I think, but certainly in the first half they were very, very poor, and until our performance at Stoke on Saturday, Newcastle were probably the worst Premiership I'd seen this season.
Well, we'll come to Stoke in a minute. I need to warm him up before we get to Stoke, but on a slightly more serious note, when you sign a striker, and especially for big money, it's nice to see him get a goal to their account early.
Lovely goal, wasn't it? As well? Yeah, really took it well. It's nothing more than I'd expect, frankly, from Craig Bellamy. We know he's a great finisher. He's got lightning pace. The thing is, and he says it himself, he doesn't really like that roll up top on his own. And he was going to either flank, he was making runs where he would expect perhaps to get knock-ons. That wasn't going to come because there wasn't anybody to knock it onto him. But nevertheless, he looked bright, lively, scored a lovely, crisp goal, and couldn't really ask any more of him, to be fair.
Right, that's the Lord Mayor's show, and that was followed by Stoke. And I was quite looking forward to it and listening to you and Fred, and to be honest, it wasn't good, was it?
No, I was a bit surprised by it, really, because having not won away since August in the league, I thought maybe this would be the one. Stoke seemed to have been a little bit of a slide. But they couldn't seem to get round them at all, long before the sending off, which clearly then made the crowd more vociferous, gave them a little bit more to fight for. But even up until that point, City, I don't think had a shot. In fact, I don't remember them having a shot in the entire game, which, when you bear in mind now that there are some new players in with a new initiative, is frankly very disappointing. And put your finger on why, I can't explain it.
It was a fairly miserable Saturday afternoon, really, Kev, wasn't it, Stoke?
Yeah, it was. I mean, we had lots of possession, but I think Stoke were comfortable with that, to be honest with you. I think they let us just have the ball. We tried to play these pretty little patterns and used Bridge quite a lot, but when Bridge got the ball and managed to get it into the middle, which he did on a fairly regular basis, there was just nobody in there to capitalise on that, and very, very disappointing. And perhaps, to a certain extent, that's the true problem that we have at City. It's how we're going to cope with getting results away from home, I think.
Well, Mark Hughes alluded to the fact about a lack of physical presence, and when the ball did get out on the wide to Wayne Bridge, I like Sean Wright-Phillips. As a player, I like Craig Bellamy, I like Robinho, and I like Stephen Ireland. But when you look up looking for someone to hit, it's not an awful lot to go at, is it really, Ian?
Maybe City have got the problem that England had for a little while. You know, the problem of, do you pick your best 11 players, or do you pick an 11 that work right? And City have got 3 superbly inventive midfielders in Robinho, Ireland and Sean Wright-Phillips. And now they've got Bellamy, who's quick and has his own particular assets. But there doesn't seem to be an awful lot of physicality in that midfield area. I know you've got De Jong now sitting behind, and maybe Company adds a little bit to it, but is there something just missing, I feel? And maybe it needs a big decision. Maybe one of those 3, Robinho, Ireland and Wright-Phillips, doesn't start every game, and there's something else that comes into the mix in there that gives a better balance, a bit more consistency in the way that they're playing, and a little bit more imagination rather than it all being on instinct. Because I get the feeling that the whole of them, as good as it is on a really good day, is all done by instinct. Now, I'm sure Mark Hughes and Mark Bowen would completely disagree and say, no, we've planned this all out. But it looks to me as if it's very much off the cuff and instinctive, which is great when it works. But when you're against a well-organised team, then there seems to be something missing. So maybe it needs a big decision to leave one of those out.
Well, that's an interesting point. So let's stick with that, because Alf Ramsey is reputed to have said to Jack Charlton, Jack, you get in this side because I picked the best team, not the best players. And taking Ian's point, maybe there is a case, certainly away from home, to let a little bit of that flair go and get a bit more organisation and steel in there, Kev.
Yeah, I agree with that. And actually, for me, I think the casualty, if you decided to go for that sort of formation, would be Robinho. I don't think away from home Robinho does it enough for me. I mean, I think even the odd games we've won away from home in Europe this season, Robinho hasn't played in any of those. Our best performance away from home this season has been in Schalke, and Robinho didn't play there either. So I think we do have to reconsider the formation we play. You can see why Mark Hughes has been so keen to bring in the likes of Roque Santa Cruz, because there just isn't an outlet there apart from him. He's tried Joe. That's not worked. You know, he started off the season very well in terms of his ability in the air, but even that strength very quickly disappeared. I'm not concerned how we're going to end up finishing this season, I don't think, because I think at home we're a very, very good team. But looking into the future, we've certainly got to make changes about the way that we tackle our away games.
It's an interesting one, though, Ian, because when you have got the most expensive player in English football, currently, we'll probably break the record sooner rather than later. It's not an easy call to make, to say, by the way, for the sake of the team, I'm going to shove £32 million as a player on the bench. But that's what he gets paid for. No, it doesn't, but it could well be.
It could well be. I mean, at some point, Petrov's going to be fit.
Yeah, he is.
So he's going to want to play on that left-hand side of midfield, assuming he's going to get a game. And at some point, City are going to sign a big, tall striker, whoever that might be. And you would imagine then they're going to go to 4-4-2. Well, if you're going to go 4-4-2, almost by definition, surely one of those three are going to be left out. So that problem is going to present itself sooner than you think. Two up top, the four in midfield, you're presumably going to play De Jong as one of those four. That doesn't leave you much scope, does it, to fit in all the other players that you want to fit in?
It's interesting, though, Kev, because Mark Hughes, I'm sure, would say, give me the problem. Because if you remember, there was that famous scenario a couple of years ago with Mourinho at Chelsea, where he was working to having two top-quality sides, one for midweek and one for weekends. And I think it was Mark Lawrenson said it on Match of the Day. Chelsea's second 11 would be the third best team in the country.
Yeah, I mean, the better teams do that, don't they, on a regular basis? You almost have to forget how much a player has cost you. Benitez at Liverpool, is probably the most famous of the managers now to put his best players on the bench. Tactically, Torres has been on the bench on a regular basis. Robbie Keane has been on the bench there. I don't like to mention Manchester United too much in this show, of course, but fairly regularly they'll put Berbatov or Tevez or Ronaldo or Rooney. They'll be on the bench, irrespective of how much those players have cost, if it suits the formation for that particular game, home or away. And I think we do have to consider the option of Robinho not being a guaranteed pick, because if he's not a guaranteed pick, I don't think we're going to get the best... Sorry, if he is a guaranteed pick, I should say, I don't think we're going to get the best out of him anyhow.
Ian, let's just stay with this theme, because this idea about picking your best team, not necessarily your best players, because I read a couple of the websites and fans' forums after the Stoke game and said, hang on, we had Joe, we had Caicedo. You know what you're going to get against Stoke. You know you're going to be up against two banks of four on a very narrow pitch, especially after you go down to 10. Why don't you throw one of those small lads out and put Caicedo in there, put Joe in there to knock people about?
Well, Mark Hughes must have made his mind up that Joe and Caicedo are not good enough. That's his opinion. He's entitled to that. He's the manager. I would have been more tempted to put one of those two in, I must admit, at Stoke, and used a bit of a point of the attack, especially now you've got Bellamy.
Yeah, exactly right.
He needs to feed off something. And Joe's only started 6 games. He's had a lot of critics. City fans have not been necessarily that pleased with chances he's missed, etc. And he's not a target man. But I would have rather seen him play in that side at Stoke than have Bellamy up there on his own and the three behind like that. And that's where maybe that decision needed to be made. Most people wouldn't argue that Robinho, Wright, Phillips and Ireland have perhaps been 3 of City's best players all season. So therefore to pick a Caicedo or a Joe up top and leave one of them out would seem illogical. But then that comes back to where we started. pick the team that's most effective rather than the best 11 players.
As we come towards the end of the first part, can we just take an early opinion on De Jong? We know he's had a long injury absence, so he's working up to what we would consider true fitness. What would your early thoughts on him be, Ian?
He's a grafter. I mean, the first time I saw him play, he reminded me a little bit of his build and the way he was ferreting around of Gattuso.
Oh, yeah. Well,
now, it's a bit early to make that comparison truly. You've got to look at a player for 10 or 11 games, and he isn't fit because he had an injury in the early part of the season. I only played part of a pre-season game with Hamburg in their mini break, the winter break, and now we've seen him play a couple of games in City's first team. He looks promising, he looks hungry, he likes to tackle, but he's unfussy. He doesn't seem to me to be a particularly creative player going forward, and I think there was one shot he had, I think it was against Newcastle, and when the shot went out somewhere near the corner flag, and I thought, right, he's obviously one role only, and that's holding midfielder in defence. Although maybe with time that'll come, a little bit of confidence, surroundings, etc. Maybe he's got a shot on him, but at the moment he looks a pretty, marked out player as just being in front of the back four.
Your thoughts, Kev?
Yeah, I thought against Newcastle he played very well, had a good confident start. Obviously tired as the game went on because I don't think he'd played any great football since November. And at Stoke in the first half, I thought he played very, very well. A different sort of game, more combative in the first half at Stoke. But as the second half went on and we had more and more possession, there wasn't really the need for the type of player that he is to play in that game. So he was withdrawn. But on 2 games, and if you can judge it on 2 games, I'm quite happy with him. He seems a very good signing.
This is Ian Cheeseman, that's Kevin Parker. This is the City Debate Show. Loads more to talk about. We'll see you in 2. City Debate Show joining me today, the City reporter at BBC Radio Manchester, Ian Cheeseman, and Kevin Parker from the official supporters club. Kev, I want to talk about the supporters club in a minute, but Ian, let me ask you first about a thing that concerned me a little bit on Saturday. Micah Richards hit the ground running when he got into the first team, gets into the England side, one of the most talked about young players in the country, says he wants to play at full-back. Am I being over harsh to say he didn't even get close to stopping that cross?
No, you're not being over harsh, and he's frankly not played that great this season. He has been an outstanding prospect and he deserved his place in the England squad, but he seems to me to have gone a little bit backwards in his career. He's always been a player that I think has been slightly overrated, if I'm not being unkind to him, and quite often the great tackles that you see him make are from his own positional play that's left him a little bit exposed, and he's had to chase back and get them away. And now he's in the full-back role that he says he wants to play in. He's got to be able to play a little bit of football too. He's got to be able to control the ball, pass, take a player on. And in that attacking role, which you see Wayne Bridge use on the other side, I think he leaves a little bit to be desired at the top level. And we're talking about City now trying to get to the top level. So it's a big dilemma, and we could have a half-hour debate show just on Micah Richards.
You could, that's...
And, maybe, somewhere along the line he's going to be eased out. I mean, if you draw up this 4-4-2 that we talked about before the break, and you move Zabaleta back to right-back, which is where he started, you've got Dunn, Company as your 2 central defenders, potentially. And then where does Micah Richards fit in? Now, some will say that Dunn isn't the right man, but City have been linked with Kolo Toure. That might be a player they bring in the summer if they don't bring him in this window. So clearly there's an issue that Mark Hughes feels in central defence, and I just wonder where Micah Richards goes in the future in this City team, because I just don't think he's a right-back.
Do you see him as a long-term City player, Kev, then?
No, I think the writing's probably on the wall for him. I was very surprised when I read the article 3 or 4 weeks ago where he was actually asking the manager to play him at right-back. I mean, that surprised me because at the time Zabaleta was at right-back and he's come in and he's played very well. At the moment, the manager's moved Zabaleta into midfield because he's got 1 or 2 other issues there. I think Ian's right. As soon as the manager gets his formation and the players back that he wants in the team, I think Richards will move out of that team. Clearly, Dunn hasn't been playing, but he's now brought Onur into the team to play him alongside Company. I think Richards might have not done himself any favours to say that centre-half isn't his position, he wants to play at right-back. I feel if he's going to be playing at right-back, it's probably going to be at another club. I can't see it being at City.
You can't see a scenario in where he gets caught in no man's land, where nobody knows where to play him for best effect.
Yeah, and defensively, you've got to say Nedum Onur has done great since he's come in. As a pure defender, he's excellent, and Micah could learn a little bit. I mean, the last thing I want to see is a young talent like Micah move on, and City should now be in a position where they can maybe take him out of the team and he can come back again and be the player that we believe he can be, rather than doing what another club might have to do, which is to balance the books, sell a young player like him when they bring somebody else in. Whilst in the short term, maybe the solution is for him to come out of the team for a week or two, I'd still like to think that long term Micah can be a really good player.
Well, I think there's a lot of mileage in that, but credit where it's due. We talked about a player who's maybe struggling a little bit, but Nedum, he's had his injuries, he's had to struggle to get opportunities, but now they've brought him into the side, Kev. Certainly if you say, Nedum, there's a player for you to mark, purely defensively, he really seems to be relishing that challenge.
Well, I think all credit to him as well. I mean, unfortunately these days, not just at City in football, young players get in the team and then as soon as they're not in the team, they get restless, they want to move, they're looking for their agent to find them another club. Whilst there's been lots of speculation over the last 12 months about Anua, he seems to have been quite happy to wait at City, to wait for his opportunity. And he's taken that opportunity now fantastically well. I think in the 2 or 3 games he's played, he's one of the few players you can look at and say, yeah, he's done his job. The ball's come to him and, you know, he's a no-frills defender, to be honest with you. I don't think he's...
Nothing wrong with that as centre-half, though, is it?
That's what you want to a certain extent. I think maybe going back to Richards slightly, I think maybe he got a little bit overconfident about where his abilities were, and I don't think he was ever going to be able to bring the ball out of defence. He's not going to link up well with the midfield or attack, and I think Ian's right as well. If you look over to what Bridge can do as an attacking left-back, Richards isn't going to be able to do that. And if Anua comes out of the team because Dunn comes back or he signs another centre-half, I see Anua as more a ready-made second right-back rather than Zabaleta. So I think Richards should be very concerned. In terms of taking him out of the team, that would be a good idea, give him a rest. But I get this impression that if Richards was taken out of the team for any reason, he'd become restless and he would want to move.
Well, that leads me into, we've just signed Shay Given, belting goalkeeper, 450 games for Newcastle, 32, so in goalkeeping terms, Ian, right in his prime. So they've not bought him for the bench. As a signing, you can't argue with it. But if you're Joe Hart, you played for England, you've got a fair few Premier League games under your belt now, you're not some wet-behind-the-ears rookie. How do you feel about one of the country's senior goalkeepers coming into your club?
He's going to be upset and he's going to be disappointed that he's not going to be in the starting lineup quite often now with Shay Given's arrival. But these are the tough decisions that have got to be made. I mean, Joe Hart seems to me, when I meet him off the pitch, to be one of the most sensible, down-to-earth players, and there's frankly not a lot of those around anymore. And I feel really sorry for him because he's not done an awful lot wrong. But Shay Given, I think, if I'm being honest, is a slightly better goalkeeper, does make better saves. You know, Joe Hart has made 1 or 2 great saves this season and has rarely made any terrible blunders. But equally, it's rare you come away from a game. I think probably Kev would agree with me on this, where you go, wow, what a... You know, he kept us in the game, he made some great saves. He doesn't do a lot wrong, but he doesn't make those breathtaking saves that I've seen Shay Given do for Newcastle.
Yeah, I think the true test will be with any player, and clearly the manager has signed Given to put him in the team. He's not been chasing...
No, it's not as if you buy Cudicini, you could bring him in as a senior goalkeeping figure. Given's there to play, isn't he?
Yeah. The test will be, it's too late now in this window, of course, you know, but the test will be in the summer. Who else might be interested in Joe Hart? That will be the pressure that both Joe Hart and the club will be under. If somebody comes in with... I mean, in the summer they were talking about Villa being interested and perhaps Spurs being interested. And the Spurs goalkeeping situation is still not right, is it? So you may well find that in the summer Spurs come and make a bid for Joe Hart that the club can't accept. And then you would imagine if it's down to the player, that if he looks at going to another Premiership club as first choice or staying at City as second string, he'll probably want to leave.
It seems we're saying fair, not negative things, but things that might concern you about some of the younger players. And I read this weekend they were talking about maybe Sturridge going out on loan.
Yeah, some painful decisions have to be made. I mean, this is all part of it's growing pains, isn't it? You know, that's what it is.
But we all have our favourite players in as well, don't we? And we all want the kids to do well as well.
Of course we do. The ones who come through the ranks are the ones we have special affection for. And, you know, go back to Nedum Anua again. He's a local lad, you know, and... all right, Sturridge is, you know, not from these parts initially, but Nedum Anua is a young lad who you really want to do well because he's come through, you know, and it's the same with them all. And as I say, Joe Hart comes over as a real top guy, and I'm sure he'll be a magnificent goalkeeper. He's still only young, remember. Given's 32, and goalkeepers are supposed to be at the peak at that stage. A difficult decision for him. Does he think, well, if I stick around at City, they're the coming club, or does he make the move because he's frustrated because he doesn't get first-team football? Only he can decide that. In an ideal world, you'd keep them both, and you'd like to think that in 4 or 5 years from now, at the age of 25, 26, then Joe Hart has served his full apprenticeship, and he's the man who takes over and becomes the one for 10, 15 years. And who knows, if things go the way we want, maybe those are the glory years.
Now, Kevin, we've taken a bit of time to talk about the team and games. Since you're here, and you're part of the official supporters club, can we take just a couple of minutes to talk about the club rather than the team? Me and Ian were talking the other week, we've got thick under 90 years between us of watching City. You can throw another 40 years into that mix. But as the supporters club, you've got a situation where the people who actually run and own the club relatively have been here 2 minutes. Has there been any obvious change in the relationship between your organisation and the club with the new owners?
Not really. I mean, the official supporters club is 60 years old this year, and I mentioned before, I think the thing is, you know, that, and you've just highlighted it there, that the people who now own and run the club have only been involved for a very short period of time, so they're just getting used to Manchester City and the players and what they need to do. I'm not sure that they appreciate, you know, things about the official supporters club or the other supporters organisations or the supporters per se about how much this football club means to us. So there's been no negativity about our relationship with the football club, but I wouldn't say it's yet been particularly strengthened by the arrival of the new owners or the new people at the top.
Well, developing that from a media perspective, Ian, you've been part of the furniture at City for 10 years now. Has your relationship with the club altered in any way dramatically with the advent of Gary Cook and the owners from the Middle East?
Yeah, they seem to be very positive, the new people. They've got a new PR person, and Gary Cook is a very positive individual himself, and they're both very encouraging to particularly the local media, which we appreciate. So you can feel a sort of thawing of that. And Caldoun, the chairman, I know was in the museum and wanted to know about the club's badge. You'll know about this, won't you, Kev? And the history of the club, and had obviously read a lot of research on the relationship between the fans and the club. And it's very encouraging, as I was a fan, I still am a fan really, and I was in the supporters club for a long time, and I value that relationship and can see why it's so important to the supporters.
Many, many thanks to Ian Cheeseman, who's the City reporter at BBC Radio Manchester, and Kevin Parker, Secretary of the Official Supporters Club. When we sit round this table next time, the transfer window will be done and dusted, and we'll know what we've got to work with for the rest of the season. But I tell you what, I bet we'll still find a few things to talk about, so we'll see you same time next time, City Debate Show. See you then.